Chapter 8. I enjoy sunny days from the shadows, June would say, whenever she was a part of a conversation about the weather, although she knew she would only be met with confusion and questioning stares. I love summer days after 6 p.m., she would continue, paying no attention to the questioning comments of others. I love watching the sunset on an empty beach when the sun isn't burning your skin anymore. I love letting myself get lost in the sound of the ocean and birds, though I tend to forget their names, of course. In that moment, she would realise that it wasn't such a good idea to be so open, because she would only be misunderstood. Nobody truly understood her language, her world. It was halfway through February, after an intense storm that lasted about 3 days. Everybody expected that Mother Nature would continue to punish them with a cruel Siberian-like winter. Except it didn't happen. It was mid-February and the temperature wasn't lower than 7 degrees Celsius. A miraculous sun was shining, and the rumour was that there would be Spanish weather with crazy temperatures of up to 17 degrees Celsius in winter, in the Netherlands and not the Caribbean. Conversations about the weather were so commonplace and frequent in June's surroundings, sometimes she would get fed up listening to the same complaints over and over. So she would sum up her comments with, "Oh well, I'd be surprised if it wasn't raining," on those days where the sky was falling apart, or, "Wonderful sunshine, it can rain, it can snow, but as long as the sun is shining, I'm a happy person." And then she would move on to the next subject. Sometimes it was exhausting to listen to the same type of conversation over and over again, but there was no other option when you share nothing else but the weather with others. However, all that blustering sometimes freaked her out a bit. Being in the minority wasn't easy. Being one of the very few people who would love the sun in the shadows or when it was about to hide itself in the ocean would bring her to the point of being on her own. In a culture where people adore sunbathing in their garden or on the balcony of their apartment, June's desire to remain silent in the shadows made her isolation more effective and quicker. Suddenly, there she was, in her bedroom, lying in bed with the curtains closed, trying to alleviate the migraine she was suffering while other people were enjoying a sunny day at the beach. Loneliness isn't painful when it's your decision. It doesn't hurt to be on your own. To be with yourself is a joy. After many nights spent thinking and comparing her life now next to him to what her life would be like without him, what the advantages and disadvantages would be, June was drawing closer to finding the truth within herself. Her emotional dilemma was absolutely natural, as was her fear of making a mistake. It was completely normal to feel confusion between wanting to be with someone for love and staying in a life she'd shared for so many years just for the sake of their history, regardless of whether they were happy or not. June felt trapped in her own emotions, but that was understandable. It would actually be strange and suspicious if she didn't feel this emotional mess inside her, this fear of the unknown, of such a dramatic change of circumstance. There was something June was certain of, however, amongst the spiderwebs of her mind, and it was that if she were to ever feel or be alone again, it would be by her own decision and on her own terms. June knew she would never again be the same girl who left her parents' house. She felt instead that she'd become a grown-up woman in all these years. She also knew and took complete responsibility for it, that sometimes personal growth involved wounding some people along the way. That is because it's just part of life. It's part of the lives of those who would dare to make a change with only one purpose, being a better person today than they were yesterday, and not for others but for themselves. When you are in a relationship with someone, the ideal is that you both grow up individually, but always as part of the same team, working towards shared goals and moving in the same direction. You work together with your partner. You don't see them as competition, an opponent you have to beat to be the winner. The idea is that you each encourage the other to be the best version of themselves, to work as a team. This is not about making one person responsible for the happiness of the other, but if two people have decided to be together, then there should be positive fulfillment on both sides. Or else, what would be the point of staying together? Another important element in a relationship, according to June, was mutual admiration, being your partner's biggest fan and them being yours. This motivates both people to keep growing and developing. June and Augusto had been together for many years already. The first 2 years of the relationship were a real roller coaster, including the huge step of moving in together, with the goal of spending more time together and starting to work as a team. From the beginning of the relationship, June knew Augusto was an active gamer, that he spent at least 45 minutes each day playing strategy games on the computer. Augusto, on the other hand, noticed that June showed signs of being a shopaholic. She had grown up with the mentality of instant gratification, of having everything she wanted, and as the years passed, she fed that bad habit, tending toward becoming a serious shopaholic. They were tolerant of each other's addictions because, in the end, when the son went to sleep, he belonged to her and she belonged to him. They belonged to each other. They made plans together. They dreamed together. The years passed and June's expat status forced her to face life in a different way than Augusto, who was a local. She had to work twice the number of hours he did and confront situations where discrimination due to her nationality and physical appearance was more than obvious. Her introverted personality certainly did not help her. According to her, if she had possessed a more open personality, she likely would have had more opportunities in this strange country, because that's how the world works nowadays. When she decided to stay permanently in a country with such a different culture than her own, she never imagined the challenges would be more emotional than intellectual. June enrolled in a master's program, hoping it would make her love her legal roots again, but in the end it only made her feel more disappointed, breaking her heart. This is how her journey to becoming a professional writer began, as writing was her true passion. Dancing and acting were two more of her passions, but she never enjoyed being the center of attention. Her desire to keep a low profile and remain anonymous was stronger. However, when June started the adventure of rebuilding her personal life, a new battle started as well. She had to compete with locals who not only had the exact same resume she did, but were also 10 years younger. From the surface, it was not difficult for companies to choose who the most suitable and convenient candidate was. In those times, exhaustion and frustration were June's constant companions due to the many rejections she received. She decided to divert her attention to doing volunteer jobs related to journalism and social media. Silently and without much exposure, she acquired skills and experience in areas she never imagined she would. This also kept her social circle active, which was the idea, moving on with life and finding open windows for every door that was shut to her. If there was one thing June hated, it was quitting, giving up, abandoning the pursuit of your goals. That was the biggest difference between June and Augusto, who had the impressive ability of finding the negative in any situation. If June could find motivation anywhere, even under the carpet, Augusto would be the one who managed to break the vacuum cleaner and spread the dust around. Where he would stop, she would speed up, but like a horse, she never looked behind her or to the side, only straight forward, minding her own business and staying in her lane. It was a totally different approach than Augusto's, who liked being part of any and all events happening. These differences became more apparent as time went on. June grew as a person and matured, but she felt that Augusto still had the same mentality he'd had since the day they met. Wasn't the idea to grow individually at the same time? More than a pleasing appearance, a beautiful face, and an athletic body, what June found most attractive was a nimble mind, full but always hungry for knowledge. This was hard to accomplish playing games in front of a computer screen or constantly staring at a cell phone and not necessarily reading. June didn't judge Augusto's decisions, she just simply didn't share the desire to make the same ones, and she had all the right not to. Both of them were free to do whatever they wanted to, a reason why June was inclined toward the idea of going their separate ways. Let's be honest, for someone to make the decision to leave a long-term relationship, many things have to happen over the years. Too much water had to flow under the bridge, as June's grandma would say. However, even with the differences and the fights, the days and nights spent in solitude and the lack of support for her own goals, June did not want to quit the relationship and tried hard to make things work between her and Augusto. But the responsibility of holding the relationship together became heavier than love, drowning it in tears. June hated to quit, but the moment had come. She had to make a choice between leaving Augusto or leaving herself. Would she give up on the chance of finding someone who spoke her love language? Why did I plan this trip? Why did I come to you? Why did I come at all? The truth is, I never left. Even though I got on the plane that afternoon in May, my soul stayed with you. I will understand if you find this text cheesy, but I promise you, there is nothing closer to reality than this. I tried to turn the page, but our book stayed open. Many editions were reprinted. Some characters left, others came. Few were stubborn enough to come back, and the scenarios changed with the seasons. I tried to turn the page, but the book did not want to be closed. Unfortunately for me, I hate leaving things open-ended. I wanted you back in my life so badly that from your memories I created a new being. Such an innocent being who has no idea what is going on between you and me, with us. If there is still an us. Am I crazy? Maybe a bit. From my dreams, I created someone who was like you, someone who would make me laugh like you used to, someone who was strong, who had that personality and temper like you did when we were together. She is you. She is definitely me. I came to the land of those ancestors I will never know, looking for fertile territory where I could plant my hopes, because I got sick of goodbyes. I got tired of crying in pain. I'm done with uninvited nostalgia. I can't stand to witness how the earth is just a bunch of people sharing the same space without even bothering to look at each other. I got tired of lying to myself, thinking I could perpetually cover and protect my heart with the hardest shell out there. I'm tired of pretending that I don't need you, that I don't miss you, that I don't think of you, that I don't love you. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not, pretending to be cold-hearted when the truth is, I do care. A prisoner does with his freedom what an underprivileged person does if he wins the lottery. I appeal to the overprotection I lived with for the first 23 years of my life. I appeal to the lack of freedom I had when it came to making decisions. I appeal to the unilateral exchange of material richness for my isolation in society. I appeal to the lack of maturity I had for the first 23 years of my life, and the more recent years as well. I appeal to the need to have what I couldn't find in my childhood: stability, freedom, and maturity. Yes, I'm back in the land of tapas that I've been unable to eat since my stomach is full of anxiety after trying to reach you on the phone. Everything shrank inside me. The size of my intestines were reduced, the enzymes are depleted, my digestive system is on strike. Certainly the muscles of my stomach have never worked as much as they did this morning. Yes, I'm back to see you, to talk to you and get closure. But you got tired too, and I understand. I really understand. Or maybe I don't. You got tired of always being there for me whenever I needed you. You were done with spending many minutes on the phone, hearing my voice from the other side of the world in those years before internet calling, when international calls were crazy expensive. You got tired of regretting that you didn't give 100% of your heart when we were together, because it was there when everything started. You had enough of those days when we would chat and call each other, and then at night you'd end your call with me and turn to make love to her. I don't blame you. In fact, I do believe it lasted long enough that we both tolerated that the situation had escalated up to that point. It wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to me. You were gone, though I wanted to be with you, even as I tried to have a child with another man. We were both too selfish. But yes, now I'm back to resolve things with you, to give us a new chance to look into each other's eyes, say at last goodbye, because you are still with me. I feel it, and I'm with you even when I'm absent. I search for new corners, new places to write about our story, to write about the corners of your memories, the same memories that are close to me every day. I go to bed with them. I dream of them. I wake up and breathe them. As you can see, I've developed some antisocial tendencies. I only want to be on my own and alone. No, I'm not being redundant. If there is ever someone eager to insist on staying next to me, then they would have to accept walking next to a zombie until the day you come back to me and never, ever leave again.